We're going to be looking at those must starts, those sneaky starts, those starts you have to start even though you don't want to because you have no other options for the Thanksgiving Day games and that Friday game to get you ready for these contests coming up. But what you need to do right now is click that subscribe button because we help you set your lineups. We go over the waiver wire every single day extensively, more than any other channel, to a degree that we're helping you find guys under the radar, guys to watch, guys to pay attention to. We help you in the offseason for the draft, the dynasty rookie drafts, everything else, your prep for your actual drafts or redraft. Everything is here. You just need to click that button. Ric Flair's watching you. You don't want him sad over the holidays, so don't disappoint him. Click the subscribe button. But let's move on. We're going matchup by matchup here, and we're going to talk about the players. We're going to talk about a must start. We're going to talk about a sneaky start. We're going to talk about the matchup. We're just going to be talking about players in general, really, because there's only 4 games on the slate, and we can really do that right now. Vegas has a 47.5 over-under for the Green Bay Packers-Detroit Lions game. Packers are on the road. You got the spread at 7.5. With this being Thanksgiving, with Vegas having a high implied point total, I'm expecting this to be a high-scoring game. I'm agreeing with Vegas. The only way this one breaks the wrong way for us is injuries and turnovers. But honestly, I see this being a high-scoring game, at least from a fantasy football perspective. It may hit the under, but I feel like there's going to be multiple players hitting in fantasy. I could definitely see that. Looking at the stats here for both teams, the Packers are 12th in the league with 23.3 PPR fantasy points per game to running backs. So they're middle of the road there. 29th to wide receivers, but they're also in a lot of weird game scripts where things are slower. The Detroit Lions are 28th in the league in points to running backs with 16.6 per game, and 12th, middle of the road to wide receivers, 36.3 per game. Tiny bit of a pass funnel, but it's not immense. The Packers are a little bit of a run funnel, but it's not immense. That being said, I feel like it doesn't matter. We can probably throw this out the window, but we kind of can look at these funnels a bit and understand where the points could possibly go. That being said, Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's been balling out all year long. He was balling out last year. Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. And that's all we got to say about that. It's not like you're not going to start him. I think you're starting both David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, especially with how bleak the running back position is this late in the season. Sam Laporta, honestly, the tight end position is just as bleak, and you're starting him every matchup nonetheless, unless you're stacked at tight end. And if you're stacked at tight end to that degree, shame on you, because you probably could have dealt one of those tight ends before the trade deadline. Hopefully you still got that. And you could probably stack up the rest of your roster, package up, and get an upgrade somewhere. The sneaky start, Jameson Williams for the Detroit Lions. Air yards, deep balls. His snaps are increasing. The opportunities are starting to increase a little bit on him. And any given play could be a deep ball to him, could be a splash play, splash matchup. He's up and down. He's the perfect sneaky start pretty much for any matchup for the Detroit Lions. And again, some of these sneaky starts are going to be stretches because you can't really do that for every team. That's hard to do. But I'm going to push myself to do so. So feel free to make fun of it in the comments here. Jaden Reed's been hot. He's been hot, a little bit volatile, but consistent. Consistent to the point, and most of his games are good enough to get you by, and that's really subjective. But when I see 10 or more fantasy points, that's good enough, even though it's wide receiver 3 levels. But 19 fantasy points in the last 2 games is good. He's hot in fantasy. Keep rolling with that. In a game script that could break, Vegas is saying that. Vegas is saying that. They're saying that it's lights out with a 47 over-under on Thanksgiving Day with 2 teams that could really slow it down. I can see the under hitting now that I'm talking myself into it. But still, his name's not Robe Nubs, but he's Romeo Dubs. And he's been kind of consistent too with some upside. So we're looking at him. You're probably starting him, but he's probably more of a decision in your lineup. Same with Jaden Reed. Really depends on how stacked you are at wide receiver, the depth of your league, if you're in a 12-teamer and you're stacked at wide receiver, or if you're in a 12-teamer and you suck at wide receiver. It really depends on where you're starting these guys up. A.J. Dillon, you might be firing up this week, but you're not with confidence, and hopefully you have other options. But you might be, because he'll be getting touches. They'll be in double digits. He might cross the goal line, but more of a hope and prayer type deal. Sneaky start Christian Watson. He's been up and down with a lot of downs this year. Very volatile. You got to watch him, see what happens. He gets air yards. He's got that speed. But this three-headed monster the Packers have a wide receiver could be enough to push the game script, which is really what we're wanting while we're eating turkey watching this game. Commanders at the Cowboys. We got a 49 over-under here. Look at the spread there at 11. Favored for the Cowboys. Very interesting matchup when we look at this for fantasy points. And Vegas is saying, hey, we see how this can be a high-scoring game. Because looking at this, Dallas is in a pass funnel. CeeDee Lamb's been hot. Dak and CD should be going off as the Commanders allowing 40.7 PPR fantasy points a game to wide receivers. So look for Lamb to go off in this matchup. Look for that to push the game script. And we need Lamb to go off in this matchup for our Commanders players to hit. We really need that to happen because how tight the Cowboys defense is, allowing fantasy points to running backs and wide receivers. We need that. So think about it when we're talking about these players. So obviously CeeDee Lamb, because of the matchup and because he's CeeDee Lamb. Tony Pollard too, because Lamb's going to keep the chains moving, allow him to get in some opportunities. Jake Ferguson, because he gets a lot of goal line looks, and he's a tight end that really should be started every week unless you're stacked at tight end. And if you're stacked at tight end, same thing. Same thing. You should have dealt one of them before the trade deadline and upgraded at wide receiver or running back. Sneaky start Brandon Cooks. He's off and on. He's had a little bit of a hot streak, but this is a matchup that could serve him well considering the ball should be flying in this game. The Cowboys should be scoring points, and that should allow the Commanders to give some pushback. If the Cowboys don't go off, this could be scary slow for us. That's the thing about this. We need the Cowboys to go off in this game so the Commanders can give us some pushback and score some fantasy points on the back end. I'm talking about for Sam Howell. I'm talking about for Terry McLaurin, Brian Robinson even, because that defense is tight. Sneaky start, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, you're watching those guys. But still, the thing about this game, the take for this game, is not player for player good, player bad. It's the matchup here. We see where it's a pass funnel and how the Cowboys can move the football. We need that to happen. We need that to happen in an immense way to where the Commanders can give you a little pushback, a little run back, and some action here to really allow Terry McLaurin to fire. Brian Robinson to fire, Jahan Dotson to fire, because the defense for the Cowboys is stacked, and maybe the Cowboys can lighten up in the third and fourth quarter, allowing Terry McLaurin to do his thing, Jahan Dotson sneak away some points. Maybe we can catch that. Niners at Seahawks. We're watching Geno Smith here. He's got a little bit of an injury, a little bit banged up. Is he in? Is he out? Will he be compromised? Don't know yet. It's Wednesday morning, but we got a 43 over-under. They're expecting this to be a lower-scoring game. And looking at the points here to the players, sixth in the league, the running backs is Seattle. So they're a little bit tighter on the running back position, but I don't think it's going to matter in this game. 14th, middle of the road, the wide receivers. 36 points per game allowed the wide receivers. I think it's not going to matter too much. I think Ayuk is going to get his. And then the Niners. 8th in the league, the wide receivers, a little bit tight there at 37.6 points per game. And then running backs, 18.5 points per game. Still, this is going to be an interesting matchup when you think about this. Christian McCaffrey, because we always got to picture him up in these types of videos for the trolls, because we got to troll him back. So, of course, Christian McCaffrey is a must-start. But Brandon Ayuk's been a must-start as well. Whenever we talk about McCaffrey, we talk about Brandon Ayuk. He's been steady. He's been having some upside. He should be considered with some of those elite wide receivers, I think, because he's getting you the upside. He's getting you that consistency. Maybe this could be a Deebo Samuel game because there's some matchups where you can throw on Seattle. You can definitely do that. I think this game could have some action for you. I think it could be a fun one. Might be a little bit slower on the fantasy side. Really depends on what happens with Seattle at the quarterback position. Sneaky start, Brock Purdy could have another upside game. That could be happening in this matchup. Really depends on how things fold out in this matchup. And I'm not being wishy-washy. I'm really talking about realm of possibilities because that's how you really should be looking at this. I think McCaffrey is an obvious smash. Brandon Ayuk, obvious start. Deebo Samuel, you're probably starting. Brock Purdy, he's on the fence for a lot of people, but there's a chance that you're probably starting him as well. And then we're looking at the Seattle side, the B side, and the wide receiver spot. You're always looking at Metcalf and Lockett and wondering, every week. But Metcalf is probably going to get some targets. Lockett is. We're just going to have to see if they cash. You're probably starting them nonetheless. Zach Charbonnet is the huge question because this is not a great matchup for him. But look for him to get enough touches for him to get you by. And if you need get you by touches, you're probably going to get that from Zach Charbonnet. Maybe he crosses the goal line. Maybe that can happen for you. But he's at least probably going to get you by with double digit, pushing 20 touches in this game. Sneaky start, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and he's the guy you're watching just in case they got to progress the targets a little bit. He gets a lower ADOT. Maybe he gets a little extra volume. Again, I don't feel confident with any of these Seahawks players until I know more about Geno Smith. But still, we got to talk about them, and you're probably starting a lot of them still due to the fragility of your fantasy team. Now we're looking at Dolphins at the Jets, and this is the Friday game. It's going to be on Prime. That's all right. We'll still watch it anyways, even if it has to be illegally. But this is a fun matchup here because you got the Dolphins here, one of the most fastest-paced offenses in the league, versus the Jets, whose defense can slow things down. So you got a science experiment here with a 41 over-under. Vegas is saying, hey, I think the Jets is going to slow this down. The thing is, though, you got Tim Boyle at quarterback. That might slow things down on the other side, or it could expedite things on the Dolphins side, and they might get you the 41 themselves. That could happen. You got a spread of 10. So the over might hit, but really, we're not worried about the over-under. We're worried about the implied point total and if it could break it. And if Vegas is wrong, the way it could be wrong is if Tim Boyle busts, which is highly likely to happen, and the Dolphins rout them. That is how it could be wrong, and that means the fantasy points will be on the Dolphins side. And I don't think anyone's going to disagree that. And the Jets defense holding it down, probably slowing them down a little bit, but the Dolphins are doing Dolphins things. That being said, I think we can throw a lot of this out the window because we know the fast pace of the Dolphins. We know the Jets defense is stellar. We know that. So looking at the Dolphins, we know Tyreek Hill is nasty. He's dangerous. There's going to be a lot of volume in this offense. Raheem Mostert's going to get in line there. He's going to get a lot of workload. Look for him to push for 20 touches or more. Maybe 17, 18 on the low, but look for him to get a lot of work. Sneaky start is Jeff Wilson because we're watching Devin Achane. We're watching him see if he's in or out. He's getting a lot of news where it's wishy-washy. I don't know. But Salvin Ahmed's on IR. Wilson might be the last man standing. And if the Dolphins are routing, I don't want to use Achane. I don't want to use Mostert. We've been seeing a lot of injuries in this backfield this season. Just throw Wilson to the Wolves, let him rack up some touches, see what happens, because Tim Boyle. And I'm thinking sneaky start, because maybe in 2 QB leagues you're hurting, and maybe we got some catch-up opportunities. But I'm thinking, nah. But I'm thinking, no. But I'm thinking outside the box, depending on how horrible or how deep your situation is in fantasy. Not just people in 10-team, 12-team PPR, redraft fantasy leagues, watch this. Devy, Dynasty, deep redrafts, best ball. So that is something you want to think about when watching my content. A lot of people watch my channel for DFS. I drop a lot of DFS hints in this type of video here. Garrett Wilson's also a sneaky start and must start because you're starting Garrett Wilson nonetheless because this is a good matchup for him. Wise, just Tim Boyle. Just Tim Boyle. So that makes him sneaky and a must start. I don't know how to classify that. Kind of a scared start, I guess. Breece Hall, kind of a scared start, but we can kind of see that he's going to get a lot of touches. And that could be enough to get you by for this week. And then that 4.3 speed puts him over into the upside category. So you're still starting Breece Hall. It's not like you're going to bench him. It's not like you're going to bench Garrett Wilson. You're just kind of scared. You're just kind of scared. You're eating your mashed potatoes and your turkey and stuff. And you're like, damn it, Garrett Wilson. Damn it. And I know tomorrow you got a rough matchup with Tim Boyle there. I know it. But we're going to have to see what happens. But those are your must starts, your sneaky starts. I kind of don't want to starts for these next 4 games coming up over Thanksgiving. and Friday. But let me know who you're starting in the comments below. I want to hear about it. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Ric Flair's watching. Don't disappoint him. I want to thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.